The storm that hit on day 15 continued into the morning of day 16 to midday, which meant a change of plan for me. I had intended cycling all the way down to the south of the Uist Islands. Instead, I decided with the late start I would stay at the same campsite that night, unload almost everything from my bike and just cycle down as far as I felt like it, which ended up being about an 80-kilometre loop down the main road and then in two big loops along the coast. One thing worth mentioning is I passed quite a few World War I memorials and was struck by the number of names on each in comparison with the small number of houses in the locality. Later on I discovered the Highland regiments of the British Army had much higher casualty rates than other regiments, but also that at the end of the war there was a major tragedy with one of the ships returning to the Outer Hebrides with I think over 200 demobilised sailors sinking as it arrived at the harbour at Stornoway, and almost all of those drowning. This is quite an impressive cycle heading down the coast. Even the main road, in fact, is great. Now, I think it was a Sunday when I was cycling it, but it was remarkably quiet, very little traffic and a very high quality road surface. But the real joy, once I got a little bit further, was the loops that were going out to the coast. Much rougher road surfaces, but a very idyllic rural scene, and you can certainly see why the Hebridean Way is something that's quite popular with cyclists and walkers alike. The causeways, this is one long one, are particularly impressive on the main road. The population density, I'd say, is low in comparison with Ireland, but it's certainly higher than the northwest corner, which I would be moving on to next. Although there's also quite a lot of ruined houses, suggesting higher populations in the past. Once I was down the main road a bit, I turned sideways onto one of the loops that goes out onto the coast. Single track roads, of course, now. Reasonable quality, actually. They weren't at all bad. Some potholy bits in part, but that gives you direct access to the beach once you go down a bit. And in fact, this particular spot is one that I had been thinking of camping the previous night, although the storm put me off because, as you can see, it would have been very exposed. The beaches are absolutely amazing. They're huge, just go on for kilometre after kilometre. Amazing. So now I've reached the famously overcrowded beaches of the Outer Hebrides. I can't spot the deck chair attendant to talk to, and where do I get a cocktail? And again, from that clip, you'll hear that there was quite a wind blowing. In fact, it was interesting because that wind was blowing from south to north. So when I was cycling south, it made the going a bit tougher. But once I swung around to cycle north, I noticed I was increasing average speed by about 3 kilometers an hour. So quite a wind push happening. And I was going to really encounter this again the next day, which I'll mention tomorrow, because I had some quite impressive uphill cycling thanks to that wind. Saw a few cyclists on this trip down. In fact, considering I was seeing almost no cars, it was quite interesting to see how many cyclists I did see. The campsite the previous night had, I think, one cyclist and about 6 hikers. It's a very popular long distance hiking route as well. And in part probably because there are, here's another one, plenty of wild camping opportunities on it. Yeah, it's just the beaches were just kind of like one after the other. They just never really stopped. This landscape, you'll have noticed, is fairly flat, and that the west coast of the Uist Islands and the Outer Hebrides are pretty flat. However, don't worry, it's going to make up things tomorrow when I get to Harris. But here's the sunset, just to pass on with, and a final look at the route map for the day.